I'm pregnant with my 7th child, so please let my kids stay at your new place until I give birth. Thanks." It was a short note left by my sister Madison, and the words written on it were unbelievably selfish. The note was left in my new suburban home, the one I had finally managed to buy just a few months ago, after years of hard work to make my dream come true. That day, at 5 in the evening, I received a final approval email from a client, wrapping up another project as a graphic designer, and began my drive home. But when I reached the top of the hill that led to my house, I saw something strange. The front door, which I was sure I had locked, was slightly open. My heart thudded uneasily. I parked quietly, held my breath, and stepped inside. The house was unnaturally silent. The familiar scent of new wood was mixed with a sickly sweetness, the smell of candy. When I carefully entered the living room, I saw a single sheet of stationery placed neatly on the walnut dining table. That was the letter, the one that marked the beginning of my personal hell. This nightmare hadn't come out of nowhere. It was the inevitable result of years of selfishness from Madison and our parents. The house had only been completed a few months earlier. It was my perfect space, a quiet haven where no one would disturb me, where I could devote myself fully to my work and enjoy time that was truly my own. That had been my lifelong dream, but that peace was shattered easily by Madison. With her husband Paul away on a long-term Navy assignment, Madison began dropping off her children at my house under the excuse of just for a little while. At first, it was only for a few hours, then half a day. And before long, my weekends from morning to night had turned into gatherings of 6 noisy children running around my home. Madison's social media was always filled with perfect mom posts and adorable photos of her 6 children. #blessed mom life. #happy with my big family. But I knew what hid behind that glossy facade. Her act of motherhood lasted only for a few minutes when her camera shutter clicked. As soon as the photos were taken, the children were left on their own while she obsessed over the number of likes on her phone. Of course, our parents knew the truth too, yet they refused to help. My mother would sigh and say, "We have our own lives, you know. Besides, you live alone in that beautiful big house. It's only natural for you to help your sister." Yes, to them, my sacrifice was natural. They preyed on my compassion, knowing I couldn't turn my back on the children. And so, my home slowly became a lawless zone for kids abandoned by their mother. Still, I couldn't completely push them away. It was because of those fleeting moments, when their eyes would suddenly fill with loneliness. "Aunt Sandra, when's Mommy coming to get us?" Hearing the eldest whisper that from the corner of the sofa tore at my heart. These kids weren't to blame. They simply didn't know what love was. If enduring it meant giving them even a small sense of safety, then I could bear it. That's what I told myself, again and again, as I buried my own feelings. But my kindness was nothing more than a weakness, one that Madison and our parents exploited without hesitation. And then, a week ago, I finally gave her an ultimatum. Madison had shown up unannounced again, with all 6 kids in tow. "Sorry, Sandra. I've got this super important lunch with my influencer friends today. Please watch them till evening, okay?" This time, I refused flatly. "No, Madison. I have an important meeting today. They're your children. You need to take care of them yourself." But Madison pretended not to hear me and ushered the kids into my house anyway. "All right then, I'm counting on you." She said that cheerfully and turned to leave. While I argued with her at the front door, the kids had already scattered inside. "Madison, wait!" I tried to chase after her, but then it happened. From my office came a loud crash. A moment later, a scream. One of Madison's children. I rushed into the room. A shelf had fallen. I lifted it up, picked up scattered documents, and checked my expensive equipment for damage. It all took only a few minutes. When I returned to the living room, Madison was gone. Her car, which had been parked in front of the house, had vanished too. That's right. In that brief moment of chaos, she had slipped away, leaving all 6 of her children in my house while she went off to her lunch gathering. I stood there in stunned silence. Then, trembling with rage, I pulled up my phone and called her. "I've had enough. You can't keep using my home as a free daycare for your kids. Don't ever come here again." That was only a week ago. And now, this mass abandonment was her answer to my warning. As I stood there, still clutching Madison's note, 6 small figures appeared before me. They looked up at me with wide, innocent eyes as if they had done nothing wrong. The youngest, a 2-year-old boy, was clutching a sticky handful of chocolate. Smudges of it stained his cheeks and the wall of my living room. Only the eldest boy, 10 years old, averted his gaze awkwardly. Without a word, I turned away from them and headed upstairs toward my office. But when I opened the door, the sight that greeted me froze me in place. My workspace, the heart of my career, had been transformed into a secret hideout for children. There were scribbles all over the walls. My treasured design books were stacked carelessly on the floor, little footprints running across them. And then my eyes landed on something that made my breath catch. A picture frame, lying shattered in the corner. It was my breakthrough design, the piece that had earned me recognition in an international competition, the one that helped me save enough for the down payment on this house. I had framed it as a symbol of pride and accomplishment. It had been torn from the wall, the glass shattered, and across the once beautiful design, red and blue crayon marks ran wildly in every direction, parts of it ripped apart beyond repair. Something inside me snapped. There were no tears, only a cold, burning rage rising from the depths of my chest. Madison, so this is how far you're willing to go. You trample on my dreams, tear apart my pride, and use your children as shields. No more mercy. You, and the parents who have coddled you all your life, will pay for this. Calmly, I reached into my pocket and took out my phone. I aimed it at the ruined art print and took a photo. One by one, I began documenting the devastation throughout the house. The drawings on the walls, the scratches on the floor, the spilled food and toys, the stains in the kitchen. Each image was another piece of evidence, carefully, methodically collected. When I finally finished taking photos, something suddenly came to mind. The security camera. When I built this house, I had installed a high-performance surveillance camera by the front door. For safety. I quickly opened the app and accessed the recordings. There it was, the footage from the exact time I'd been away. On my phone screen appeared a familiar sight. The front of my house, quiet under the afternoon sun. I pressed play. At 1:15 p.m., Madison's car pulled smoothly into the driveway. That was the very moment I had still been in my client meeting. She got out of the car casually, as if she'd done this countless times before, and began opening the back doors one after another. Like unloading cargo, she ushered her 6 children out, one by one. Each child stepped out, holding a toy or a snack as though they knew exactly what to do. Then Madison took a white sheet of stationery from the passenger seat, the note, and walked straight toward my front door. And then, unbelievably, she took a key from her pocket and opened the door with ease. A key. When did she? Then I remembered. A few weeks earlier, one of my keys had gone missing from my key case after she'd come to drop the kids off. It had reappeared later on the table, and I had brushed it off as a child's prank. I hadn't realized she'd used that moment to make a duplicate. It had all been planned. In the footage, Madison emerged from my house just seconds later. She bent down, said something to the children, and then shoved them all inside. Without stepping in herself, she slammed the door shut. Then she got back into her car and drove off at full speed, without looking back. I stopped the video playback. I didn't need to wonder where she'd gone. I already knew. No doubt she's already running crying to our parents, telling them, Sandra's being mean. She refuses to watch the kids. But I no longer care. This isn't a sisterly quarrel anymore. It's a crime. And this time, she won't talk her way out of it. On my phone screen, Madison's car was clearly visible, right down to the license plate. I uploaded the footage to the cloud for backup, then opened my phone's dialer. Without hesitation, I tapped a certain number. The few seconds before the call connected were the quietest, yet most resolute moments of my life. Emergency services. Do you need police, fire, or medical assistance? A calm voice spoke on the other end. I made sure my own voice wasn't shaking before I answered. Slowly, clearly. Police. There are 6 children abandoned in my home. It's a case of child neglect. It was only 10 minutes after I hung up that I saw the flashing lights through the window. A police car had arrived. I took a deep breath and opened the door. 2 officers stood there. Are you Miss Sandra Johnson? We received a report about an incident here. I nodded and led them inside. When they saw the state of the living room, both men fell silent for a moment. This is bad, one of them muttered, staring at the scribbles on the wall. I quietly handed them Madison's handwritten note, which still sat on the dining table. One officer slipped on gloves, picked it up carefully, and read through it. When he finished, his expression was a mixture of disbelief and exasperation. "Your sister. She left her children here?" "Yes. And here's the footage that proves it." I showed them the security recording on my phone, the entire scene of Madison unlocking the door with a duplicate key, shoving the children inside, and driving off. Both officers watched the screen intently, their faces hardening as the video played. When it ended, one of them spoke gravely. "This is a serious case of child neglect and unlawful entry. You did the right thing calling us, for your sake and for the children's." His words loosened something tight inside me. For the first time that day, I exhaled slightly. We'll contact their parents ourselves, and in situations like this, we're required to report it to Child Protective Services. A social worker will be here soon. Just as he said, within minutes, a calm, professional-looking woman arrived at my door. She was a CPS caseworker. She knelt down and spoke gently to the 6 children huddled in the corner of the living room. "I know this must be scary, but it's going to be okay now." After exchanging a few quiet words with the officers, she turned to me. "The children will be placed in temporary care tonight. Their emotional well-being is our top priority. You should take some time to rest, too." Following her lead, the children were escorted out by the officers. As they left, the youngest boy looked back, his voice trembling. "Where's Mommy?" That simple question struck deep into my chest. They had done nothing wrong. The blame lay entirely with their mother, Madison, and with the adults who had enabled her. Once the house returned to silence, I let out a long breath. 30 minutes later, my phone rang sharply. The name on the screen, Mother. Feeling the storm that was about to break, I pressed the call button. "Sandra, what on earth have you done?" The shrill, hysterical voice on the other end nearly pierced my eardrum. The police must have already contacted her. There was not a trace of concern for the children in her tone, only raw anger and accusation aimed at me. "Don't you feel sorry for Madison? She's pregnant and she's been through so much already." "Mom, please calm down and listen. Madison committed a crime. She abandoned her children, broke into my home, and destroyed my property. What I did was the lawful, necessary response." My calm explanation only fueled her outrage. "A crime? Are you serious? Just because your house got a little messy, you're calling your own sister a criminal?" All she asked was a little help. "You live alone in that big fancy house. How hard could it be to look after your nieces and nephews for a while?" "You're so cold, so selfish." Of course. They hadn't changed, not one bit. It had always been this way. No matter how hard I worked, no matter how much I endured, Madison was always the one praised and pitied. Whenever I tried to speak up, I was scolded for being selfish. Whenever Madison made a mistake, someone else was always blamed. "You're the eldest daughter. You should be the one to endure." How many injustices had I swallowed because of those words? Who's really the selfish one here, I wonder? I replied quietly, but firmly. "So where is Madison now? Let me guess. She's at your house, isn't she?" I heard my mother gasp on the other end of the line. A few seconds of silence passed before she answered, her voice trembling. "I don't know. Maybe she ran off somewhere because you pushed her too far. If anything happens to Madison, how will you take responsibility?" I let out a short, bitter laugh. Of course. Even now, even after all this, they were still the same. You're the ones who raised Madison into the monster she's become. I'm done. I'm done being your good daughter, your convenient older sister. It ends today. What did you just say? You heard me. I'm not going to tolerate it anymore. Madison and the parents who made her what she is, you'll all be held accountable. Don't ever contact me again. Before she could scream another word, I hung up. Moments later, my phone began buzzing again. This time, it was my father. I declined the call. Then I powered off my phone, sank deep into the couch, and exhaled slowly. To my surprise, I felt completely calm. There was no grief, no sorrow over losing my family. Only resolve. A quiet determination to reclaim my dignity and what was rightfully mine. The next morning, I visited a law firm. Attorney Hansen listened to my entire story without interruption, from start to finish, with a measured, professional calm. I laid out the evidence, the photos I had taken, the security footage, and a copy of Madison's note. She reviewed each one carefully, her brows knitting tighter as she went. This is appalling, utterly one-sided and malicious. After reviewing all the documents, she murmured quietly, "I'm not seeking leniency. I want my sister to be punished according to the law, and I want full compensation for the damage she's caused." She nodded firmly at my words. "I understand completely. Here's how we should proceed. The criminal investigation is being handled by the police and CPS, but we'll also file a civil suit. That will cover the cost of repairs, compensation for destroyed property, and damages for your emotional distress." She spread a document across the table. "For the property damage, we'll get a professional estimate. As for emotional damages, having your private sanctuary violated, your lifelong dream destroyed, case precedents suggest we can pursue a substantial claim. This isn't just about money, Sandra. It's about asserting the value of your dignity." Her words washed away the last traces of hesitation in my heart. "We'll also assist fully with the criminal proceedings. Whatever defense Madison's side attempts, the security footage is irrefutable evidence of both neglect and unlawful entry. This is, frankly, a very strong case." "Thank you, that's reassuring." "But Sandra, understand this. By doing this, you're making your family your opponents in court. Are you prepared for that?" She looked straight into my eyes. I didn't hesitate for even a second. "Absolutely." And with that, I signed the contract. The beginning of my formal, all-out counterattack against Madison. That afternoon, my phone rang again. The number displayed was unfamiliar. International. Cautious, I answered. A voice I hadn't expected came through, low and subdued. "Sandra? It's me, Paul." It was Madison's husband. But his tone was unlike the cheerful man I remembered. His voice was heavy, restrained, almost broken. "Paul, how did you get this number?" "CPS contacted me. They told me what happened, that Madison abandoned the kids at your house and that you called the police. Is it all true?" His voice wasn't angry, it was exhausted, filled with quiet despair. "Yes," I said softly, "every word of it is true." He let out a long, weary sigh. "I see. So it finally came to this." The words carried both resignation and a strange sense of acceptance. "Sandra, I'm sorry. Truly, I knew. I knew how much you'd sacrificed for Madison and the children. And I chose to look away. I kept telling myself she'd calm down someday, that things would get better. I was a fool." I didn't know what to say, so I waited, listening in silence as he continued, his voice fading to almost a whisper. But I never realized how deep it went. Her spending, her lies, her utter irresponsibility as a mother. I didn't know Madison had fallen that far. I've been working overseas for years, serving my country, sending almost everything I earned back home. I just learned from the CPS report that the money I sent wasn't used for the children at all. It was blown on designer bags and beauty treatments. This time, she crossed a line that can never be uncrossed. I could hear the tremor in Paul's voice. "I've filed for emergency leave. As soon as it's approved, I'm flying back to the US, and when I do, I'm divorcing Madison." His words were abrupt, but there was no hesitation in his tone. "I'm truly sorry for everything you've been dragged into, but I have one thing to ask of you, Sandra. I will fight for custody of the children, no matter what. Until then, please, protect them, keep them safe." It was an earnest, desperate plea, a father's final act of integrity. I could feel his resolve, and I nodded silently. "All right, Paul. I promise." That call marked a turning point. My battle was no longer just about reclaiming my own dignity. It had become a fight for justice, a fight to rescue 6 innocent children from their neglectful mother and return them to a father who still had the courage to care. That weekend afternoon, a violent pounding shattered the stillness of my home. Bang, bang, bang. Each blow against the door echoed like thunder. When I checked the monitor, I saw them. Madison, her face contorted in fury, and behind her, my parents. The lawsuit must have reached them. So Madison had been hiding at their house all along. My mother's lie was fully exposed. I exhaled slowly, then walked toward the door. The moment I opened it, Madison lunged forward, shouting as if to claw at me. "Sandra, are you serious? You're actually suing your own sister? Have you completely lost your mind?" "The only one who's lost her mind is you, Madison. You abandoned your children in my house, and you dare lecture me about family?" My calm, cutting tone silenced her for an instant. But my mother quickly stepped in to defend her. How can you say such things? Madison came to you for help. And instead of being there for her, you called the police and now this lawsuit? Are you trying to destroy this family? Destroy it? I met her eyes squarely. I didn't destroy anything. You did. You're the ones who let Madison's behavior go unchecked, who looked the other way, who blamed everyone else, and now you're condemning me, the victim. It is you who have rotted this family. Why you? My father, who had been silent until then, stepped forward, his face flushed red. You call yourself an older sister, yet you won't even help your own sibling, you ungrateful brat. Do you have any idea who raised you? That final phrase broke something inside me. The last door in my heart, thrown wide open. Gratitude? I've repaid every ounce of gratitude I ever owed. I'm done being your scapegoat. I looked at each of them in turn, my sister, my mother, my father. Shock, anger, and just barely fear flashed across their faces. Get out. Leave my house. Now. If you continue to trespass, I won't hesitate to call the police again. I closed the door firmly, with finality. Their muffled shouting carried on from the other side, but none of it reached me anymore. That day, I severed the last chain of blood that had bound me for a lifetime. A few weeks later, the courtroom battle began. The security footage was undeniable. Madison's crime was laid bare for all to see. When the evidence played, Madison and my parents sat pale and wordless, the truth leaving them nowhere to run. The verdict? Complete victory. Madison lost custody of her children, and the court granted Paul full parental rights. My civil suit, too, was upheld in nearly every aspect. Madison was ordered to pay the full cost of home repairs, replace the destroyed artwork and furniture, and compensate me for the emotional trauma she had caused. A figure the judge described as substantial. Outside the courthouse, Paul stood waiting with his 6 children. His voice broke as he spoke. Sandra, thank you. Truly, without you, I never could have saved them. The children huddled close to him, still uncertain but relieved, safe at last. They would begin a new life together, away from chaos. As I watched their small figures run to their father, I knew with absolute certainty that my fight had been the right one. After the divorce, Madison gave birth to her 7th child. She now lives alone as a single mother. But the crushing weight of the damages and legal fees has left her in ruin. The glamorous life she flaunted on social media, her curated images of perfect motherhood, has vanished. Her accounts, once filled with smiling photos and brand names, have been deleted entirely. As for my parents, they sold their longtime home to cover her debts and now scrape by in a small apartment. Their twilight years spent paying for the daughter they refused to discipline. They once called me ungrateful. Now they've given up everything to protect the child who destroyed them. And strangely enough, I feel no pity. This is simply the natural consequence of their choices. What I had gained was a rock-solid confidence that no one should ever intrude on my life, not even family. And above all, I have gotten an irreplaceable, calm, and quiet everyday life.